Hello, and welcome to Thinking About Bitcoin with me, Christina, and Daniel. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation about the usefulness of using a framework of a poker game to think about Bitcoin and specifically to discuss how that might impact making friends. Before we really dive into that, I'm going to pass over to Daniel, who will be able to give me and any other viewer a revisited outline of the article by Bitstein, Everyone's a Scammer. And just to make sure that any of our viewers who are confusing what we may be saying about poker as a poker game, Bitcoin as a poker game, as opposed to as if it were, won't be confused. So over to Daniel.
Okay, so the idea is just that you should think about poker as kind of a framework for ethics in Bitcoin, and I think that you should look for good poker players when you're looking for good people in Bitcoin. But I don't think Bitcoin is literally a poker game, and the idea comes from an article by Michael Goldstein called "Everyone's a Scammer." Um, and so the idea of the article is just that because Bitcoin is a completely insane place where there's just tons of people throwing tons of money at idiotic nonsense everywhere, and there are also vast fortunes being made here and there, and it's all kind of mysterious and nobody really knows necessarily what is the way to get rich in Bitcoin, you know, because of that.
Or I might add, stay rich, right?
Right. Oh, that too. Yes. Yes. Staying rich is almost as hard as getting rich. In fact, depending on the time scale, it's even harder. Um, so so because of this, everybody has their own information that they need to keep secret, and that is their plan, and not just like what coins they have and how much they have, but what their plan is. How are they going to try to get more? And uh, everybody is a con artist under some circumstances. And to me, like, I don't like lying about investments, but if people are clamoring to buy something incredibly stupid, I think that it is fine for me to go and build it for them. Um, and and if I don't, somebody else will. So that, to
And
me, that
there's an interesting prompt there to ask, and I asked without having an opinion about what the answer is to my own question, which is to further move into, well, if there is a need for someone to promote the ridiculous thing that you have built, is there likewise, within the ethics framework that you would bring to a poker game, remembering from our first conversation that ultimately the only rule that really counts is that you don't do something to prevent the game from carrying on, right?
sure. Well, to me, there really, I don't think there is anything wrong with pretending to have insider knowledge, because you really can't tell the difference. Somebody who does have insider knowledge, they can't necessarily prove it to you. And so I think that it is fine to fine to just put on a false face. And this video is kind of going to be about how to make friends doing this, because bluffing, that's important in poker, right? So I think
Yeah.
that, like, you should be looking out for people who are doing a good job putting on a false face that is very funny, and that is likable, as opposed to somebody who is putting on a false face that who is genuinely manipulating people. So, like, I would say
Right.
that I am kind of playing a character on my show, Bitcoin Stuff, who's kind of like a super villain, and I call him Emperor of Bitcoin, and he acts like he's the emperor, and if you don't do what he wants, he makes vague threats at you.
Right. And but the point is that your point is that there are amusing and likable ways of going about presenting a persona, right? Because if we take
Sure.
slightly less moralistic terms and we basically talk about the fact that all people are navigating with some kind of persona all the time, whether it's in the poker game of life or the poker game of Bitcoin or so on. Um, Back to our chat about Swedenborg, anybody who caught that in our Land of Giants series, he talked a lot about correspondences, this very ancient idea that a little bit as above, so below, but I would suggest in this context, there is an instinctive kind of, and I think real correlation between, if we're going to talk about some kind of authentic core of a person and the personas that they build, the ones that are likable stand possibly a better chance of being correlated to likable
Sure.
personae, right?
No,
And
absolutely. And I love playing the supervillain, and I think that people like supervillains in movies. So
but
I think that I'm
especially
playing a likable character.
right, they
But
especially like the
going
funny ones, the funny
but
ones.
right, but I wanted to go back to something else. Let's see what we were saying about I remember about pumping and dumping,
Right.
because to me, like if somebody is going around screaming like bye, it's gonna go up now, the only response to that is to make your own FUD until there's just noise filling up everything and all of it is meaningless. Because what I would like is for meaningless signals to be drowned out. So
Right.
somebody who's saying like buy, sell, like nobody who really knew anything would do that. Okay, the only reason to do it is to manipulate the market, right?
Well, I would argue that anybody who really knows something has a choice about whether or not to listen to it. I mean, look, the virtue of the pump and dump is as ancient as markets themselves. And this is where our interests kind of intersect really a lot around kind of prediction markets and the need to recognize that this miraculous kind of data set that we have mushrooming all the time around still really relatively free, unregulated, Wild West, ancient Roman space where we can see exactly all of the kind of poker strategies that are being used. And the question becomes, how well can you, if you're sitting at a poker game, knowing that you're at a poker game, not pretending that you're playing chess, read all the information that is out there in the forms of the other players and maintain an awareness of yourself as playing in that game? And so being
Right.
interpreted in that regard. And to me, the idea that if you take up the reality that in order to play this game, you actually have to learn some stuff, not everything, but some stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and that the value of that knowledge is to precisely be able to say, recognize a pump and dump and choose to have a response, whether it's to like make a whole truckload more FUD or to do nothing or any of the other sets of responses. You have more control, or to simply join it for a 2% gain in a 300% pump. Whatever your choice is, you are informed and therefore actually playing the game, not being played by the game.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, and I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with being playing along with a pump and dump if you think you can make a bunch of money at it. I mean, to me, it's kind of like it's if we're playing a board game, I'm certainly not going to like try to stop other players from performing their strategy and saying that that's like an evil strategy. Like, to me, that seems just kind of ridiculous. And I think
Right.
that, like, there are bad consequences for somebody who gets fooled because they lose money, but it is also your responsibility to recognize that you're in a dangerous environment, and not to stick your hand too far deep in. uh
Right.
so
And if you if you do, you've got another hand. Back to our point about, you want to
Right.
have some baseline,
That's a good attitude. So
right?
now
And
can
I
we go,
think,
let's,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah,
just want to go
just
into
to,
make, sorry, I want to go into making friends now because I'm done with the recap, I think. So anyway, if you had anything to add, sorry.
only that the more that I talk to you about this, the more I am convinced that the rules of any game, whether it's Bitcoin or markets or the future or anything real, is that we really have to take an approach that goes the fewest number of rules, and they protect the continuing of the playing of the game.
Oh man. Well, I love that idea. So so the idea of so everyone is a scammer. And so first I said like you are a scammer under certain circumstances, but that also means that other people are also scammers under certain circumstances. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to regard everybody as potentially treacherous,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't really matter who. Uh, and to me, this is kind of the problem with having like a cult like uh, you know uh, worship of the developers, because to me people who say like we need to defer to the decisions of the developers are not recognizing that everybody is potentially treacherous. And really the only way to enable Bitcoin to evolve cooperatively is to use a process that is harmonious with the inherent treachery of everybody in Bitcoin. And that's a topic for another day. But that is the prediction market. Spoiler warning.
Spoiler
So
warning.
yeah,
Um,
so so somebody who is acting very serious, and especially somebody who is trying to put on airs, uh, to me, that is not a good poker player, because that's not that is not that is indistinguishable from bluffing. Like anybody can put on airs and claim to be an expert, and claim to know what they're doing. And the only thing that would really convince me, or I should say the evidence that I would accept that you know what you're doing, is that you put a bet down on your plan. So that doesn't mean you do know what you're doing, but it does mean that you are punished if you don't know what you're doing. And I think that's pretty much the best you can get. So when you are looking for friends in Bitcoin, you should be looking for people who are willing to make bets. And I would say that I am betting on myself right now with my show, because I am acting like somebody who doesn't need to be friends with anybody. Um, and you should be looking for people who can play a funny character. And to me, the reason that's important is if you're a funny character, you're not being manipulative. So to me, a funny character is somebody who knows how to be manipulative, but is deliberately keeping it toned down just to show you that they can do it, but they are not doing it. They are being the funny man. And a person who can be funny to me is also somebody who looks like they know what they're doing. Okay. Because somebody who does not know what they're doing uh, probably may not have the presence of mind to be able to be fun loving. So I think that it doesn't really matter too much who the funny character is. And that's kind of why I play a supervillain, because I'm just kind of trying to show people that you can be the evil character, and that is still just fine. It just has to be like a fun evil character. Um, and I think you should be somebody that just lets you kind of be yourself, you know. Uh, oh, and by the way, well, let me just bring up something we were talking about earlier when you were discussing the your upcoming talk at the Satoshi Vision conference. You told me something where we were trying to think of like how to present yourself, and you were saying, I want something that kind of has an air of authority to it. And I told you that that's almost the opposite of what you want to do. Um, I think that once people go to your talk, then they'll think that you know what you're talking about. But if you were to sort of present yourself as like possibly some like crazy cat lady who snuck into the conference, I think that that would
I think one of the tags when we were kind of trialing it out, you know, independent researcher or academic or so on, I think I did suggest radical housewife, but we can go with crazy radical housewife.
okay. I guess I just didn't quite quite see where you were going with that, but yeah, I can see that that one kind of goes along with what I was saying. Not just as an idea, just to me, it is kind of like someone who is a funny character is somebody who knows what they're doing more than someone who isn't a funny character, you know?
Right. So I agree with you. And I've taken notes now going around in a whole circle of my piece of paper. So if I can, because then I'm going to forget because I'll start scribbling over them again. I wanted to say,
Okay.
I think your original point about the problems of cultism, right? It's one of our recurring themes. It's one of the things that we really have in common by way of an area of interest. And I would argue, and it will continue to be my position, that the problematics of any group, whether it's Bitcoin core developers, whether it's Bitcoin Cash advocates, if whatever, whether it's Monero people, whatever kind of cult mentality forms where there is a truth that seems to have been discovered and then an unwillingness to engage in the idea that there might be more than one truth. It creates real problems for the investor. It creates real problems for the player because you're not actually able to access what is, at the end of the day, games aside, the most consensus authentic discussion about what is going to work best for all the people involved in what it means to make it work best, of which, you know, investors and producers are parts of a group. So that's one thing I wanted to say on that part. And I think that the idea that everybody is moved under certain circumstances to be a con artist or to bluff or to insert some level of persona that is not the same as the authentic, true, revealed, you know, naked self, is a really good point. And so I think that the real treachery we have to avoid is the one that is called self-sabotage. So that's the one where we forget that we're capable of conning ourselves. If you start with self-knowledge, you can then also apply it outwards and see what you can discover about other players, areas of, say, blindness to themselves.
Oh,
Where great
great point, by the way. Let me just say, like, I don't mean to say that the Bitcoin Cash people are not a cult. It's just that I've been focusing more on the core people, and it is so obvious with them. But I'm going to be learning a lot more about Bitcoin Cash when I go to the Satoshi Vision conference soon. We'll see how they look to me. We'll see how they deal with the Emperor of Bitcoin over
Yeah,
there.
indeed. And I think that onto like the further like detailed kind of description and analysis you were giving about, you know, your character as well as funny characters, as well as what is the role of humor, right? And I think that to take a position that goes, I don't need to be friends with anyone, but my form of interaction is one that is amusing, that is funny, is an ancient, powerful role to take. I mean, it is the position of the fool, right? It is the persona that allows for truth to be told to listeners without taking a position where you become a cult leader. And
Yeah.
I think the thing about humor is that it holds a mirror. It's why, at the end of the day, humor can, all right, present viewers, present all of us with stuff that, given a funny context, leads to laughter and connection, rather than that same truth, that same information being presented in an unfunny, try to convince you, try to show you something kind of way that actually can totally lead to anger and violence and things that destroy the game.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, just a few final things. So politics I think fits into this. I don't have much to say on this, but I think that somebody who plays a very funny leader character and other people want to play along with his funny leader character, I think that that's a good way to pick a leader in Bitcoin. Um, just mentioning that, not intending
Oh,
to
no, no, not intending to set up for part two, because I'm going to suggest that we take a pause here and I will share with you, which I haven't said before, which is that some of the notes I took after our first chat really were about the parallels to politics. So, yeah, why don't we?
Okay, well, just a few last things. I want to recommend my Narnia video because that's it's kind of like an artistic way of saying some of the stuff we're talking here. And also earlier I said you should be someone who can show that you can manipulate, but you are using the power to produce humor, rather than to really scare people. But there's a converse, because you should also be someone who is open to being manipulated, and but you should also be someone who can stay in the in keep seeing it as a joke, so you shouldn't. So if I am out playing my character and I go like "Ah," then you could go oh no, or you could go you could try to fight back too. You could also just try to try to
So I
intimidate
shall
me
Wonder
back.
Woman you. I shall Wonder Woman you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And either of those would kind of be an appropriate reaction. Uh, and an inappropriate reaction would be um, to really get scared,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or well, to me, like if you don't want to react, you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if I can see that you can play along, that is somebody who I think I would want to be friendly with. That's kind of that. And yeah, so I'm excited to talk about the part two as soon as we can.
That's awesome. And I will say, having watched the Narnia video before I really met you personally, I can totally recommend it. It's excellent. And I think just the last point on what you were describing is to be able to keep a meta awareness, to be able to continue to see yourself as a kind of character is the thing that allows us to really connect with other people's characters. So, yeah, I am totally agreeing with you. People who play along are more fun to play with.
Oh, and one last thing. If you cannot play a funny character, then that is a sign that you should reevaluate your investment decisions, because you should be in a position that you can still have fun even while you are taking risks. And if you can't, then you might might want to think that the risks you're taking are too great, and that you might be putting in yourself in a position where you will not be able to control your emotions in the future.
That's such a better way than the stock phrase, which I do like, of, if you can't, if the price of your investments is keeping you up at night, you've got too much in. So I like the idea that if you can't have fun, be amused, be amusing, that you have taken on too much risk. That's really great. So I will see you in the next broadcast, and thank you. And let's talk soon. Bye.
Bye.